Once again, it's Friday night, and we are here with therapist Tori. How are you doing this evening?
Excellent. Excellente.
Anytime
Yes. It's
work,
been overcast today, but it's still a good Friday.
and I heard it was raining today. Did it not? Did it rain near you?
Yeah, it's real rain in Houston. Like it ain't nothing fake about it. It's real. Like
It's
and
serious.
so yeah, it was raining. But
Yeah, it was overcast here too. A couple of drizzles and stuff, but I don't know what's going on with the weather. It's going through its changes, so it is what it is. Alrighty, so it's a new Friday, and what are we talking about today?
well, today we are talking about, and we'll see how far we get, but talking about the 10 habits of successful intimate relationships. So that's what's
Well,
up.
yes, indeed. So, do you have kind of like a definition is not the proper word, but more or less a synopsis of this intimacy amongst couples, I assume, correct?
Yeah. So we're primarily talking about emotional intimacy. We're not going to get into erotica or physical, but emotional intimacy, which is just as important as other types of intimacy. But the 10 habits specifically kind of focus on when there's conflict or confrontation or negative feelings. So,
On how to deal with it. Gotcha.
mhm.
So, let's go ahead and start with the first question. Where should inti- Let me try it again. Where should intimacy fall on the relationship's priority list?
Well, all types, I mean, physical and emotional intimacy should be a high priority. I often say that, it's important to work, I mean, sometimes people think that they're working on their relationship and they're really not. So, and working on the relationship also involves, you working on yourself. So it's not just, you're not necessarily focused on the changes that your spouse or partner needs to make, but you're also, focused on, working on yourself and what kind of changes you need to make and what's challenging for you.
Hmm. And I'm assuming people tend to forget themselves in a lot of relationships, especially if they're wrapped up into that other person. They'll tend to forget themselves and where they're left out at.
Yeah, that happens. People lose their own identity at times,
Mm.
or try to find their identity in the other person, and you know, we all know that doesn't work. So,
Indeed.
because you'll never be another person.
Right. Right.
You
What
know.
is your knowledge or understanding of how the lack of intimacy affects relationships?
Well, believe it or not, I've been in relationships myself. So, um, matter of fact, I was recently kind of describing a situation where I was, talking to someone and they clearly had no communication skills whatsoever.
Hmm.
And so I think initially, like, I was trying to make it work and trying to, sort of establish a rapport and, you know, but I quickly realized that this was not a situation where I could freely express myself,
Hmm.
um, because they felt like, now I don't know what their past experience in relationships have been, but their perception about communication was very negative. And just saw it as, oh, we're going back and forth. And it's like, no, I mean, that's not necessarily going back and forth. I mean, we both need to have the freedom and the flexibility to talk and express what we're thinking and feeling. I mean, if we don't have that, I mean, nobody can read your mind, you
Right.
know. I can't read your heart and mind, and nor can you read mine. So outside of that, you just jump into conclusions and making assumptions about what you think the other person feels.
Hmm.
So
So communication is definitely, is it like one of the things that a lot of men normally don't do that you've seen?
well, I wouldn't necessarily qualify it by gender. Um, I mean, of course, I mean, I love my parents, but I tell people quite freely that I did not come from a situation knowing how to communicate, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I wouldn't qualify it as being, a male problem or a female problem. I think it's a relationship problem overall, and I myself, I mean, even though I've been counseling for 17 years now, I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm an expert when it comes to communication. I mean, I'm still working on this myself, and I'm still trying to, practice and implement these things on a day-to-day basis. So, um, but I think it's just inherent, I mean, we have to learn how to communicate. I have to learn how to express myself. Uh, and I'm gonna be honest with you, like early on in my life, I did feel like, yeah, you should be able to read my mind. You should know what's on my mind, and you should know what I'm thinking. I mean, we've been together long enough for you to know what I'm thinking and what's important to me. And it's simply not true. I mean, it's just simply not true. So, um, I had to get out of that mentality and stop thinking that somebody can read your mind, or somebody knows, you know, what's important to you, or they know what triggers you. And, no, nobody's automatically going to know anything like that, So,
Yes, indeed.
hmm
Alrighty. Are emotional needs important in a relationship?
very important. I mean, and not only do I need to be able to express or share with you how you need to deal with me on an emotional level, but I need to know and understand that about my partner as well, you know. Um, and I've heard people say, well, I mean, I have to pay attention to what I say at work, Hey,
Mhm.
Carla. So I don't want to have to pay attention to what I say at home.
Right.
And it's like, well, I mean, if you ain't gonna go to work and cuss your boss out, then why do you feel like it's okay you know, to talk to your spouse or partner in such a way, you know? Like, no, that's not, I mean, if it's not acceptable for me to talk to somebody I don't know, or talk to a coworker or a friend, if I don't talk to them like that, then I probably shouldn't be talking to my romantic partner like that either, you know? So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be these justifications and allowances because it's a personal relationship. I mean, communication skills can be applied in all aspects of life. So,
Indeed. Now, this would be definitely something a man would ask: is intimacy only physical?
no, not at all. I mean, I'm sure people have heard, well, make love to my mind and my body will follow, you know. So if you're in a situation or a relationship and that person is not really touching on or addressing your mental and emotional needs, then the physical may not be as fulfilling either. Like you can, and I've seen these situations. I mean, you can have great sex, but not have a great emotional connection, and eventually even the sex won't be that great because the emotional connection isn't that great, you know. So there has to be this balance. It has to be both, and I mean, and I've heard people say, well, I don't want to deal with nobody that has baggage. Well, then that probably means you don't want to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh.
more than likely you got some baggage too, so.
Yeah, I think about that when I hear people say that. I mean, yes, you have the power of who you wish to deal with and so on, but to try to put a person in a bag or in a box rather,
Uh-huh.
that's kind of not fair because there's nobody that's perfect these days except Christ himself. So it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
You got to be a little more open.
Yeah, it's like you Xing out a lot of people there,
No doubt. Your preferences reduce
hmm
largely.
I mean, sometimes I talk to people and you find out like there's all these qualifications and barriers, and it's like, well, you got to be this age and you can't have any kids and you got to be this color and and you got to be a Christian and you got to be this tall and it's like, well, damn. I mean, you cutting out a whole lot of people, if everybody you date got to be 6'2", so.
Right. Miss Carla said that part, some of the best sex is intimate sex, which is way better.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Okay, how important is being a team?
Yeah, well, like they say on the commercial, there's no I in team.
Right.
Um, no, it's important to feel like a team. And just like, kind of what you said about definition, I mean, we all define success different, so the ways in which I define a successful intimate relationship might be different than how you define a successful intimate relationship. So we all have to, kind of develop that foundation and that meaning for ourselves as to what that means. And not only that, but be able to express that to the person that we're in relationship with. This is my idea of success. How do we create this vision together?
Hmm. There's the old saying that I love a lot. Want to go somewhere fast? Go by yourself. Want to go somewhere further? Go with someone. And
Mm-hmm.
the power of team, even with like the gym, I can work out and I don't feel like I produced anything. But when I'm there with my friend, I get pushed further. I'm able to, go past weight limits or whatever because I
Uh-huh.
have a buddy system.
Mm-hmm.
So, Miss Erica, welcome.
Hey, Erica.
So yeah, I definitely understand the power of a team, and when you have a team that has good cohesion or synergy, even man,
Uh-huh.
nothing can stop y'all in most cases.
Absolutely.
All right, what advice would you give to someone who feels stress is eating away at their relationship, causing desire to be intimate, uh, that desire for the intimate to be low?
Um, Well, one thing that I stress quite a bit when it comes to communication and communication skills, it kind of goes back to that bad word, empathy, you
Hmm.
know, and increasing our ability to empathize and our ability to put ourselves in the other person's shoes.
Hmm.
Um, oftentimes we can stack up all these grievances, and I stack up all these reasons as to why I did things a certain way or responded to things in a certain way. But what I might be forgetting is, well, how do they perceive what's happening? What's happening for them? I can't just consider what triggers me, but I also have to consider what triggers my partner, what triggers my spouse. Like, it might be different, but it's very important for me to put myself in the other person's shoes and try, if you will, to look at things from a different perspective. One thing I ask couples quite a bit is, what is your willingness to invest in this relationship? Like, yes, you have your grievances, and yes, you may have your justifications, and you may even have unspoken expectations, things that you never talked about, that you expected, but you never said that was important, right? So it's like, I got to put my ego aside. I have an ego, but let me put that aside right now. And let me, for the sake of argument, for the sake of open communication, I'm gonna try to look at things not only from my own perspective, but also the other person. That doesn't mean that what you say and what you feel is irrelevant. It doesn't mean that at all. We don't have to agree about everything, but it is important to empathize and to be able to look at things from your partner's perspective.
Hmm. I will definitely say personally, in some cases, especially being a caregiver, it was kind of hard to empathize since I'm pretty much in the front line and dealing with the fire on a daily. But
Hmm.
I still did what I could do to try to make the frustrations less, or, I just tried to make the atmosphere as best as possible. But boy, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah,
So, I don't know. Empathy from a distance was a lot easier than when you're right in it, though.
yeah. And
Personally.
oftentimes we have to work together. I've seen so many people come to individual therapy trying to work on relationship problems. And the thing is, it's like, we can talk about it.
Hmm.
We can talk about it and maybe come to some resolution about certain things, but in order to work on a relationship, it has to be both of y'all working on the relationship. The things that you're talking about and sharing with me, you got to share with that person too. Otherwise, I mean, we can talk all day, but if they're not a part of this process, then how much progress are we gonna make?
True that. True that. Uh, how important is it to set goals together with your partner?
That's very important. Actually, as we kind of go through these 10 habits that we've been talking about or starting to talk about, um, part of that is pursuing a shared meaning, having a joint vision, you know,
Hmm.
because it's like, it's two different people or two individuals. You're going to have your own thought process and your own ideas, and your own ideas even about vision independent, right? As an individual, you think these thoughts, and oh, this would be a great relationship, and the other person has their own thoughts too. But
Hmm.
how do we combine that vision and set goals and establish that vision for both of us, or us as a family?
Hmm.
That's an important part, because I can be sitting here thinking of all these great ideas floating around in my head, but I don't talk about it. I don't emphasize it. I don't share it,
Yeah.
and the other person may be doing the same thing,
Hmm.
but it's important for us to share that information so that, we can pursue a shared meaning. We can create a corporate meaning, not meeting. And so, and oftentimes I'll say, like, well, if a corporation, if an organization, if a facility, if they can come up with a vision, why is it that we can't come up with a vision for our relationship? What are the things that we want to do and establish together? What is the foundation that we want to create together? So, I mean, having those shared goals is very, very important. And the thing is, even if it's not necessarily a passion for me, that doesn't mean that I can't support you and what you're trying to do. It might not be my thing, and what I'm doing might not be your thing, but we can support each other.
Right.
And that's the other thing, is being able to define what that support looks like. Because I may be, having some expectation in my mind of what that support looks like, and you're over there doing something else, thinking that you're being supportive, and I'm thinking that's not support. So I need to, if there's a certain type of support that I want or need, then I need to say that, because I can't expect the other person to know.
Indeed. Let's see here. Um, what correlation does love languages have with intimacy?
I think it correlates a lot. And it's interesting that a lot of people really do know about love language, but knowing about it and applying it might be two different things.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can name them. Gifts, quality time,
Hmm.
words of affirmation,
Yep.
acts of service,
Yep. Physical touch.
physical touch. Yeah. I knew I was gonna forget one. Um, so now, I think the interesting thing about love language is sometimes, like, what we want is what we give.
Mm.
So for me, I'm definitely a quality time person. Quality time and affection. That's me.
Mhm.
So now what's interesting is I like affection, but I've had to work on it because, I'm a product of Marguerite Dorsey. she My mom was not a big, like, affectionate person. Um, so for me, in my young adult life, like, I wasn't super affectionate. So I wanted to be affectionate, but a lot of times I didn't act on it. Right. So, but I am big on quality time. And so that it's really easy for me to give that, we give that. So it's like, what I want is the thing that I give, you
Mhm.
know, but in a relationship, I need to give what communicates love to my partner, you know.
Right.
So they might not be a quality time person. They might be an acts of service or, something else, right? So, but I need to give what actually communicates love. And,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that it's, for all people, it's necessarily one thing. It could be a couple of things, but that's the thing that we need to focus on when it comes to relationship. And I have to figure out what app that is. I think there's an app that focuses on the love languages in a relationship, and you can, I don't know.
It's
I know
probably.
somebody, um,
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, if I'm correct, I found out mine by actually going to a website. I don't know what the website is. I might be able to find it, but
yeah, now what I do know is that there is, like, a quiz that you can take online to kind of figure out what your love language is.
Mhm.
Um, But yeah, it definitely coincides with how we treat each other, how we respond to each other in a relationship, and it affects intimacy a great deal.
I'm assuming this is Lena. Welcome to the show.
What's up?
I was going to say that people tend to display or show off their love languages like it's a zodiac sign. And I was looking at it. Your purpose of understanding your love language was not necessarily for you, but more or less your partner, so that they can, talk to you in your love language for you to understand. Like in my case, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. Even though it's 3, it's normally, I do know words of affirmation is big because I was raised by my mom and my grandma that you knew, and their words is what made me feel good about myself, So that was my, my lifeline right there. So I understand why words of affirmation made sense to me. So I get it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see here. Do you want to do the blast artist now, or do you want to go to another question?
Oh, we can do it now.
Okay. We'll slide right on into the 30-second mark doing that. Okay. Gentlemen, we're going to do the blast artist of the week, which is one of my favorite artists. His name is Elijah Rosario, and this song is called Movie Star, featuring Voice. So let's check it out.
Yeah, just me and my bros. Fresh out the whip with the drip, and we know that we chosen. Yeah, the ladies look at us, wondering who we are. We walked in the club just like some movie stars, just like some movie stars. Yeah, just me and my bros. Fresh out the whip with the drip, and we know that we chosen. The ladies look at us, wondering who we are. We just walked in the club just like some movie stars, just like some movie stars. Got the all white with the seppies, got the champagne, yes, feel a little rich. Walk through the club, they respect me, baby don't test me, taking you home after this. Run through the town, turn it up with my bros. We ain't worried about a thing, cause we got money to blow. Let's go. Pour up the shots, now we litty, bros on the scene, yeah, we in the city. Cameraman catch it, baby come near me. She pulled up a shot, took a shot off a set, and I'm gorgeous. Told me my skin is so flawless, told me to smile for the big ego enormous. Run through the town, living all this, know that I always been late. Yeah, just me and my bros. Fresh out the whip with the drip, and we know that we chosen. Yeah, the ladies look at us, wondering who we are. We just walked in the club, just like some movie stars, just like some movie stars. Life is good, paper straight. Take a shot, let's celebrate. Can't complain, bills is paid. Brothers on that paper tray. Off that we levitate. Bossa now we regulate. Got a new stock, got a different demeanor. Just leveled up in our salaries, Dina. Yeah, just me and my bros. Fresh out the whip with the drip, and we know that we chosen. The ladies look at us, wondering who we are. We walked in the club just like some movie stars, just like some movie stars. Yeah, just me and my bros. Fresh out the whip with the drip, and we know that we chosen. Yeah, the ladies look at us, wondering who we are. We walked in the club just like some movie stars, just like some movie stars.
Alrighty, and that's Elijah Rosario featuring Voice, and the song's called Movie Star. And if you are an artist, even a up-and-coming comedian, or even a spoken word poet, Blast is the place for you. Go to blastmusic247.com and register as an artist for free and be a part of the family. Oh, geez. Blastmusic247.com, changing the industry one artist at a time. It's Friday, thank God.
You made it. You made it. Mm-hmm.
Artist that won't stop being badass. Yes, indeed, Miss Lena. Alrighty. Let's see here. Um, Here we go. Is it important for reconciliation to occur quickly in a relationship?
Oh yeah. Um, Now, oftentimes you hear people say, "Well, I just shut it down. When I get upset or I don't like what's being said, I
Mhm.
just stop talking." Well, that's called stonewalling. You know, so and sometimes people can do this for days and days and days. Walk around the house like pissed off. I'm gonna show you that I got an attitude. I'm mad.
Yeah.
Not healthy. That's not healthy. We should be able we want to be able to resolve things as quickly as possible, you know. Um so and we used to hear the old saying, don't go to, we don't go to bed mad at each other.
Right.
Well, I kind of think that's a good rule to go by, you know. Like, and it's like, what are you carrying it for? Why am I intent on being angry and showing you that I'm angry, you know.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that it's something, well, just let it go, don't talk about it. No, it needs to be talked about. But if you're in a place where you can't talk about it effectively or you can't talk about it without getting heated, then that's probably not the time that you want to talk about it. But you
Right.
can say, well, hey, let's table this conversation. Obviously, this is something important that we need to talk about. And I want to be able to effectively hear what you got to say, or I want you to hear what I have to say, but now's not the time to do it. So
Mhm.
in the next 24 to 48 hours, let's revisit this conversation. We are going to talk about it.
Right.
And I'm going to give you the benefit and trust that we're going to talk about it, but may not, immediately might not be the time to talk.
Yeah.
So, but, you can do that without saying, well, I'm going to stay mad, until we talk.
Miss Lena says, ugh, I hate that S. Stonewalling, huh? So that's what one of the X used to do. I have a name now. I didn't know it was stonewalling either, but we knew
Yeah.
that.
Now, there's nothing that, I mean, that one gets to me. That
Mhm.
like I cannot stand that. I cannot stand the whole shutdown and not talk. That one I used to feel like, oh, you just ignoring me. I'm being ignored, and it would just chap my hide. But I mean, I also had to learn, sometimes it's not necessarily the right time. That you don't want to, escalate a situation that doesn't need to be escalated.
Right.
But, if you're in a place where now isn't the good time, a good time, then you definitely want to indicate, I do want to talk to you about this.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about this tomorrow or the next day. So I think it's important to at least say that and provide that security to your partner to say, we are going to talk about it. Just right now isn't the best time. So
Everyone's makeup to reconcile is different. And in my case, I'm the type, there's an issue, let's fix it. And
mhm,
not everyone is willing to rebound that quick when they're pissed. So
right.
I get it. I get it.
hmm But it's just, you know, if if I'm if I'm just allowing this to linger and I'm not trying to resolve it, then
Right.
to me that's more so about your ego. Like, I want to let you know that I'm mad.
You're right.
And not only that, I'm gonna make you pay, you know.
Ooh,
so
that's a
so
whole.
when we're coming at a situation with that type of attitude, that's the part that's not healthy.
Indeed. Okay. Let's see here. Do you feel trauma can affect the intimacy of relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, traumatic things that we've experienced, even sexually, sexual trauma that has been experienced can definitely have an impact on relationships,
Right.
and I know in some instances people have hidden the fact that they've had these experiences, or they haven't shared this with their partner or spouse, and certain things are triggered and their partner is like totally unaware of where this come from. So I think it's important, to share that certain things have happened to me.
Mhm.
And so if I react or respond in a certain way, and this is why I'm reacting and responding in that way, you know. But if there has been any type of trauma, that's definitely something that you want to work out in therapy. Um, and if you're going to couples therapy, you definitely want to let the therapist know that that those things have occurred, because it can really explain a lot, you know.
So Lena said, relationship combo tonight. Awesome. Can I ask questions? Of course, we're live, so you can ask questions. So please do, Miss Lena.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I know the hardest part for pretty much anyone is to expose their dirty laundry, as the saying goes. So
Mm-hmm.
that happened bad, that may have been traumatic to them, and so on. Because I remember a situation like with my mom, the first time she had her manic episode with bipolarism. We didn't talk about it for, I'm talking like 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And it was mostly because I also lived somewhere else and whatnot. But when we had the opportunity to talk about it, she was in the right state of mind to talk about it,
Right.
and so
Right.
open to accept whatever. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it happened again recently, it was a lot quicker to talk about because
Mm-hmm.
she understands now.
Right.
And um,
Mm-hmm.
bipolarism itself sucks. That's all I know. Because to have a person who don't have a conscious idea of what they're doing until they're back to their senses, that's
Mm-hmm.
frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. It is absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, I do want to. I know we're talking
Yeah.
about 10 habits, but we haven't talked about 10 habits. So, so before we go to the next question, I at least want to talk about habit number one, which is avoiding a judgmental attitude. Okay. I'm going to read just a little bit, so I don't want to bore nobody, but here it says research suggests that without meaning to, intimate partners often trigger defensiveness in each other before they even open their mouths. So when we know somebody, we know what their trigger points are. We know, I
Right.
know what your code is to set you off and send you to the moon. Okay. The, the attitude that you have when you're upset will tend to breed cooperativeness or defensiveness in your partner. And I do want to say this is these 10 habits. The author is Brent J. Atkinson, Dr. Brent J. Atkinson. Um, Here's when you know that you have a judgmental attitude. When you find yourself saying or thinking things like this: you shouldn't have done that. That was really inconsiderate. You're never satisfied. And
Hmm.
how could you possibly think that way? So, and it's like automatically when we go on the attack and we become judgmental towards our partner, we automatically know, okay, defensiveness is coming in return. Because when you go on the attack, the natural response is to defend yourself, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, it also says researchers have discovered that a vast majority of the time when partners are upset with each other, neither partner has done anything intrinsically wrong. So oftentimes, in arguments, people are trying to decide who's right and who's wrong. Well, once again, that's an ego process. If I
Mm-hmm.
have to prove to you that I'm right and you're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we've learned that from the past or our past experiences, one person has to be right and automatically the other person is wrong.
Right.
So when you start to feel like there's one correct standard, when you're expressing rigidity and inflexibility, then that's going to pose a problem communication wise in your relationship. So avoiding a judgmental attitude, number one.
Mm.
What's on your mind?
I try not to judge, especially with anything, because we got. I'm well aware of my history, so that's why in a glass house, don't throw stones type of thing. So,
But the things that we talk about, a lot of things that we talk about, we've done it. I've done it, So just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean I haven't done it. I've done it, but I could say I've worked on it, and I do it a whole lot less. And also I recognize when I'm doing it, So
yeah. Okay. Nice. Let me see here. Lena hasn't asked a question yet, but you're still welcome to. Anyway. What advice would you give someone who struggles with initiating sex with their significant other?
Well, I feel like that can be associated with fear, you know, um, and sometimes it's fear of rejection, and I remember even saying to myself, well, I'm just gonna wait till the other person, try to do something, because if I try to do it and they say no, then I'm gonna be pissed,
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
I
I'm with
mean, yeah, it's like, um, it's really like coming to the core of what is that about? Like, is my doing that? Is it based on fear? And if so, if it is fear, then fear of what? What exactly am I afraid of? You
you.
know, so with some things I just gotta face it head on, and um, and it's something to even talk about with your partner. Sometimes I deal with this, or sometimes I'm afraid to initiate intimacy, any type of, whether it's an intimate conversation or, physical intimacy. Sometimes I'm afraid, and maybe even your partner can help with that. Well, it's like, well, let me know how I can help with that, and what will make it more comfortable for you, what will
Right.
make it easier, you know
Mm-hmm.
because again, I don't know what's going on in your mind. I have no idea, so, and then if the source of it is trauma, the thing is, am I dealing with it? Am I dealing with this in therapy? Am I challenging myself to, you know, to do certain actions that in the past I haven't done, so.
So the great Lena has a question.
Okay.
She said, "Those were great therapists, Tori. Question: I'm on the brink of a new relationship with someone that I really, in capital, really like. And my question is, how long do I wait before I bring them around my friends?"
Hmm. I don't think there's any particular time frame. I mean, with my sister, I would, it could be somebody I just met and I'd be like, hey, it's my sister, or, so I don't think that there's any particular time frame that you have to wait. Um, I know some people may be concerned and think, well, I gotta, I need to wait 3 to 6 months before I introduce it, before I introduce you. It depends on how you feel. Now I'll be honest with you. Back in the day, I used to be like, oh, I need to date this person for a couple of years. And I don't think that no more, because I realize time isn't necessarily the marker for intimacy and closeness in a relationship, you know. So that's my opinion. That's what I think. Don't matter.
Yeah. I guess you would have to base your judgment on those type of friends,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the track record with them. Where they want to take your toys and whatnot from you, then those are the ones you don't bring something that you like around them. It's
Yeah,
perspective.
or if they've been negative towards you and
Definitely.
your relationships, I would say those probably not the people to bring them around.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest. I mean, people, even friends, even people that you care about, can have a tendency to be negative sometimes, and that happens. So, uh, I would just say take everything with a grain of salt.
She also said part two, with social media being so naturally intrusive on our private lives, is it normal to want to, quote, hold back on how much we share with others? That is one of my triggers, quote, boundaries.
What's the question part?
It is it normal to want to hold back on how much we share with others?
Um, yeah, I think that's normal. I mean, and again, I feel like we have to gauge it ourselves, because I think with social media, yeah, there might be certain things that I share and certain things that I don't share.
Right.
Um, you know, I mean, and I just base it on what I'm comfortable with. I tend to be, with certain things, I tend to be a pretty private person. In times past, when I started dating somebody, I'm not like putting them all over social media and, hey, this is my boo and blah 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 blah, because I'm just not ready to do that. But that's me, you know. Um, but yeah, I think it's natural to hold some information back. I don't think it's just it's personal preference. Now, if you got a new boo every week, that's a different thing. That would be good reason to maybe not put it out there so much.
One of the scriptures in a good book that I've always kept close to the chest is never cast your pearls among swine, and
Yeah.
whatever you deemed valuable to you, don't just throw it to be trampled by anyone that doesn't give a rip about it. So in a
Hmm.
situation like that, you would have to judge your company.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
How important is conversation after intimacy?
Well, I don't want to talk. I want to go to sleep. But
Understand?
but some people like to talk. Really, I think that's after intimacy, that's a great time to talk, because your heart, your mind, and emotions is in a different space. So, and you may be in a really good space to talk. Um, uh, so that could be a great time to talk and have a conversation. And at that time you can see things differently. Maybe I realized that what I originally thought was a big deal, it really wasn't a big deal. Or the way I'm thinking about it now is totally different than at that particular point in time. I was tired, I was stressed, things were going on at work, kids was calling from the school. There could be a lot of reasons as to, I mean, we are human. And so there could be reasons as to why we're responding in a certain way. And, it's always important to give yourself time and space to look at things differently and have a different perspective. So I think it's a great time to talk.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Unless you're sleepy.
Unless you're sleepy. Or you eat something, then go to sleep.
Right. Like, wait, talk to me tomorrow. Hold on.
What advice/tips would you give someone to strengthen their relationship with their partner/significant other?
Okay, say the question one more time.
Sure. What advice or tips would you give someone to strengthen their relationship with their partner/significant other?
Tips to strengthen their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's asking yourself, how good of a listener am I? Am I just hearing and waiting until you get it all out so I can say what I got to say?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I really listening to what you're saying? Am I listening to your heart? Because, sometimes, and I know I used to do it all the time, like I'm just listening to respond. I'm just listening to debate. I'm just listening, I'm waiting for you to finish your sentence so I can jump in and say what I gotta say. And if I'm doing that, I'm not really listening to what you're saying. I'm actually, paying attention so that I can refute or defend instead of really listening to what you're saying. So, again, that's the biggest question. And that's what, I feel like empathy forces you into a different mindset. Yes, I have my own opinions. Yes, I have my own thought process. Yes, yes, yes. But am I looking at things from your perspective? Do I understand how you feel? I mean, just like one of the principles that Stephen Covey talks about, in order to gain understanding, I need to give understanding. If I want you to understand me, then I need to make an effort to understand you. Why should I expect you to understand me and I don't want to hear nothing that you have to say? I don't want to listen to nothing that you have to say. I just want you to hear me. Well, that's not creating an environment of understanding. So, like back in the day, sometimes you need to hold your mule and listen. Don't just hear words and sound, but listen. That's not as easy as we think it is.
So, agreed. Especially if you're heavily opinionated. You definitely want to put the 2 cents in. Just what was that, like double Dutch? How you just waiting for that opportunity to open up so you can get in.
Right. So, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
What else you got over there?
Well, I wanted to give at least 2, and so definitely there may be a part 2 and 3 to this particular series. But number 2, to successful intimate relationships, standing up for yourself without putting your partner down. I should be able to express myself, express my thoughts, express my mind, express my heart and my emotions without trying to tear you to pieces. I don't need to dog you out. I don't need to criticize you. I don't need to talk about your mama, I don't need to do all that in order to get my point across. I should be able to express what's on my mind and talk about what I'm feeling without putting you down. And again, sometimes we come from these paradigms we come from families where somebody had to be right and somebody had to be wrong. Somebody ain't, somebody's leaving this party mad, but we don't necessarily have to express ourselves in that way. So standing up for yourself without putting your partner down. I will read this little excerpt. It says here, when couples are distressed, it's most always the case that neither partner has the ability to stand up for him or herself without putting his or her partner down. Instead, partners criticize and never state exactly what they want. They try to present their own point of view as the only reasonable option, or give in to their partners while secretly thinking bad things about them. So it's sometimes we concede, and we go along with what our partner is saying, not because we're really, there with them or really listening or really jiving with what but I just want you to shut up. So I'm just going to say, okay, all right. People who swear that their partners are control freaks are often amazed to learn that their partners are actually willing to compromise when they are asked to move over and make room rather than be judged or criticized. So it's like, I want you to make room for me in your life. I want you to make room for my thoughts and my ideas, whether you agree with them or not. You don't necessarily have to agree. We didn't come together because both of us are exactly alike.
Right.
Matter of fact, I know my mom used to say, if two of y'all are the same, one of you isn't needed. Right. So we don't have to be the same. We need to appreciate the differences. I need to appreciate what you bring to my life. You don't have to be the same. Indeed. So I think that's a good point. Standing up for yourself, which is important, without putting your partner down.
Agreed. Was that all that you had for now?
Considering the time, yes.
Fair enough. Well, I would say I think that was a great conversation.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Good work. Guys, thank you so much for coming to check us out tonight. And thank you, Miss Lena, and everyone, Miss Erica, and everyone that just gave your input. We appreciate it. We're grateful.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central, we will be here. We have something awesome again coming up next week. So we look forward to talking with you. Do you have anything to share, Ms. Tori, before we head out?
No, just the two that we covered today is avoiding a judgmental attitude and standing up for yourself without putting your partner down. I just hope that everybody has a wonderful Halloween weekend and go to some parties, eat some candy, give out some candy, or maybe you don't celebrate Halloween, so get some rest. But just hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and I thank everybody for being here. Thank you so much.
Indeed, everybody, please be safe, and we'll see y'all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.